Hello, everybody. Welcome to MHTV. It's lovely to have you with us tonight. We're going to be looking at a couple of really interesting different perspectives. We're looking at grassroots work and the type of influence and change that can have. I really want to get to our guests, but before I do that, let me come to Vanessa, who will tell you how you can join in tonight. Vanessa?
Hi everyone and welcome to tonight's chat. Looking forward to tonight's conversation, as Nicky says. We hope you'll join in. For those of you new to us, you can either join in through Twitter, or now X as it's called, although I still call it Twitter. You can join in there just by following the MHTV hashtag, and you should see some tweets there. Please add your comments and we'll feed them into the conversation. Alternatively, you can go over to Facebook and find the Unite MHNA page. If you like the page there, it should put the live chat up, and you can just add your comments there, and I'll be monitoring both throughout the chat and feeding into the conversation. I'll hand you back over to Nicky.
Fantastic. So let's greet our guests. Who'd like to go first?
Ladies first.
Nice.
I'm going to be unconventional. I think it should be men.
Nafiza, come on. Introduce yourself and say hello. Tell us a little bit about
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, Nicky and team, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and Assam the opportunity to be on your show. So my name's Nafiza Anwar, and I'm director and co-founder of the Association of South Asian Midwives, which is a platform that was established following conversations between 3 South Asian midwives. And it's a platform that is for the South Asian community, marginalized midwives and student midwives. And basically, it's about creating awareness and an understanding about the South Asian cultural behaviours and taboos that are in existence within the maternity and birthing setting.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm really pleased to have you with us. Rohit,
Thank you very much.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, of course. My name's Rohit Sagoo. I'm founder and director of British Sikh Nurses. I'm a children's nurse by background, and also a child nurse lecturer, but I'm currently on a career break doing a funded PhD with the University of Bedfordshire and evaluating a child and maternal community-led service in Luton, Bedfordshire. I started British Sikh Nurses in 2016, which is a non-profit organisation and a community organisation, just really looking at how we bridge the gap between the NHS and the Sikh and South Asian community in terms of health inequalities, such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, organ donation, stem cell donation, and various other projects that I've been involved with, which I will talk about in this webinar with you this evening. So yeah, we've won a couple of awards as well in terms of it as well, so that's been really good in terms of our work as well, where we've won I won the leadership Royal College of Nursing Leadership Award in 2021, the London Faith and Belief Awards in 2018 for community practice, and was awarded the 14th Point of Light Award by the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We're going to say a huge boo after that. I'm sure we are.
An award
has to be said, but you know, I was happy when it gave that award to me as well. And we've hit a hat trick this year, where finalists for the BBC Make a Difference Awards in terms of our Restart Our Heart campaign, which I'll be talking about, and also finalists for the Royal College of Nursing and Nursing Times Awards.
Yeah, really excited to have you with us. I think it's so interesting and important looking at kind of things through different perspectives, but also looking a little bit at community interventions. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about how you're working with different communities. Are you reaching out there?
Nafisa?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So for us, obviously, we are an organisation that sort of looks at maternity, sort of the experiences of South Asian women within the maternity sort of field. And the way we've been working with the community is through awareness, bringing about awareness, sort of understanding what is lacking out there in the community. One of the first things that we did as an organisation was reach out to service users, to the women, and ask them to share their experiences of maternity services, and so that we could understand what was actually out there and what was going on. And we were inundated with experiences. There were some positive ones, but there was a lot of ones that were and I don't like to use the word negative, but not what they should have experienced. And it was very apparent that a lot of women that were using the services, because of, you know, their sort of understanding or non-understanding of maternity services, their expectations weren't met, or they weren't being treated the same as their white counterparts. You know, it was as though there was a two-tier system in existence. You know, they weren't being listened to, and we know that our women aren't being listened to for whatever reason. And it was clearly apparent. So one of the things that we have been doing is sort of creating that awareness, working with, sending out messages to women about, you know, what are the gaps, what do they feel their expectations should be, and what are the gaps, what were their experience, and what do they feel would enable them to have a better experience. And on the other side of the coin, we also work with the workforce, because obviously when you have your diverse workforce, if they are experiencing, what we have found also is they are experiencing exactly the same things that the community are experiencing. So it's about working with the workforce and understanding what we can do to support them in order to make those changes in the community. So it's again about coaching, about looking at the barriers that someone who looks like me face or have faced in their midwifery or nursing journey, and what is it that we can do to support them, because obviously it's about representation. Unless you have representation within that workforce, and especially in the senior positions, because unless you have a position of power and authority, you're not going to be able to influence change. So we've been working with staff as well and the workforce to try and bring about change, to bring about confidence, to give them hope that yes, it's hard, it's challenging, but there is a need to try and, you know, infiltrate the system and recognize that talent and nurture it so that they can break that glass ceiling.
Absolutely. It's a hard thing to look at, I think, but it's so important. If you don't squarely face things, you can't change them.
No.
Rohit, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think really what we need to look at is also, in terms of what I look at, is we are pioneering in some respects. We're a faith-based nursing organisation. This is British Sikh Nurses, and it's a phenomenon in terms of the grassroots innovative nursing work that we do. And I think we really need to embrace innovation and the defining, you know, grassroots nursing in nursing as well, you know, involving the proactive practice innovation inside and outside healthcare institution, and addressing local health inequalities. That's really important. And I think that's one of the main things, the drivers, or one of the critical factors of like work with us in terms of British Sikh nursing, in terms of facilitating the need to influence, you know, health behaviours in the South Asian community in the UK, gathering the right resources and disseminating the information to the community, I think is essential. We did lots of work around COVID-19 in terms of myth busting. We've worked with various partnership organisations such as NHS Blood and Transplant and NHS Organ Donation, Anthony Nolan, DKMS for stem cell donors, Mary Curie. So it's really just about gathering that information, appropriately addressing those health concerns in the community, and especially the ones that the community fear. And we never really look at that in terms of it. What are their fears and what are their needs? We have this perception in healthcare that we address needs and we address inequalities, but we don't address the fears in terms of what they have as well. And I think, as you know, as an example, I would say of a faith leader or etc., you know, you've really got to take those risks in terms of communicating with your community and give them, you know, that insight and meaningful connectedness, and build those community relationships that have already been established. And I know that we have nursing in the community, but if we really look at the nursing in the community, it's an extension of the hospital. So you're still doing hospital-based care, but you're doing it in a community environment. And one of the things that I did with the Nursing Midwifery Council, when they were going through their SCIFN course, which is the public health course, was actually look at it and say to them, when you're rebranding your course and when you're revalidating your course, one of the areas that you really need to think about concentrating on are those little snippets of grassroots organizations that are really doing the work. and connecting with those organizations that are doing the work, because they would have had a feel for what's going on within the community, what are their needs and what are their fears. And we never really look at that. And I think that's one of the key things that British Sikh nurses have taken on board. We got contacted by NHS Blood and Transplant to look at organ donation, managed to get some community funding, initiative funding for it as well. And we really brought home the conversation for South Asian families to sit around a dinner table and talk about end of life, because culturally they don't. South Asian families don't. They'll talk about marriage, they'll talk about who's rich, they'll gossip about God knows what, and that's what happens all the time.
Yep.
But when you have that taboo conversation of death and what people's wishes are and what the end of life of wishes are, it's almost shut down. It's literally shut down, and we're not going to talk about those things. So really, we brought that, we brought that to the surface to really provide awareness and education within the Sikh and South Asian communities around those approaches and subjects that people don't tend to get involved with. And I think that's one of the key fundamental principles of British Sikh nurses.
Yeah, you're both saying things that so many things jumping into my head to ask you about. Now I've got you here. So I guess one of the things that you're absolutely right about health being a human endeavor, isn't it? It's about faith and love and emotions and all those really interesting things. And I think you were also right as grassroots organizations that whilst you're working in the community, you have different pressures, I think, maybe than other types of community nursing who are doing it in a more aseptic kind of way, in a strange way from what you're describing. So I guess some of the things that come to me are the idea about you being a trusted voice and the responsibility that brings. So the closeness you have to your populations, almost raising the level of pressure on you to be perfect, right, doing the right thing all the time. And also that really odd, pernicious idea about hard to reach communities, where people who are very far away talk about people who are equally far away from them without making any effort to contact them and describe them as hard to reach. I wonder if either of you wanted to talk about sort of the idea of trusted voice or hard to reach.
This sort of terminology, hard to reach, I mean, I think that's just easy to say that, but actually those people are actually easy to ignore, and we are persistently ignoring these people or these communities, because we're not taking those steps to actually go out there, because they're not hard to reach at all. They're out there. It's about getting your feet on the ground and actually building that trust with your communities, working with them and actually understanding what the dynamics are and what is it that they want. A community knows what they need, what their needs are. And it's about, we talk about co-production, we talk about collaboration, but, why would they co-produce with you if they don't trust you? And historically, all the things that have been happening, the data, they are aware of these facts. They listen to the news, they hear stories from their, for instance, in maternity, from fellow women using the services. So, why should they trust us? So it's about engaging with them on that really, really ground level. And for us, that's what we believe that ASSAM is doing, is building that trust with the community. They see, people that look like them and reaching out and saying, look, tell us what you want to hit, what you feel. Going to the community centres, going to those areas where women get together, because there's enough there. It's about finding those out. There are plenty, and asking the right questions, the appropriate questions, not sort of scripted questions that usually, people from the hospital or people from the health service go in there and say, oh, I want to ask you this, X, Y, and Z. Why would you give people information? Because you are giving information all the time. But what is it that you're doing with it? You're asking us the same thing, but yet there's no action. So hard to reach is a term that is very easy to use and turn it around and say, well, they're not engaging, but actually it's us who are ignoring them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, hard to reach is it's a terminology that I don't use, because you have to make yourself visible. That's the most important bit, and I think that's when people will reach you, to make yourself visible. And I think we have, especially with British Sikh nurses, we have a with an array of social media platforms that we can make ourselves visible with. We've got around, near enough 6,000 followers on Twitter alone, and that's it. And that's how you reached me, and then I reached out to other people. And so I think it's never, things are never hard to reach until you go out into the community and make yourself visible in the community. And like Nafiza said, you have to see it and be it. And what I mean by that is they have to see you as themselves. You've got to wear the same color skin. You've got to have the same similar nuances, have the same language that you're talking to them with as well. So when we go out to communities, we talk in Punjabi. We've got a team now. For years I didn't have a team when I was doing this, but now suddenly I've got a team. And you've got women and on the team, you've got myself as a male on the team. So you're talking the same language in Punjabi to the congregation, the Sangha, and they're listening to you, and you've got your professional identity along with it as well. So that's alongside it, and you've got your own accountability as a nurse in terms of what you're providing and the health information that you're providing as well. So that comes with some responsibility as well. And over the time, building over the last 6 years, building a reputation within your own community, especially within faith communities, you've got to build that reputation. And once you've built it and you've been to, a Gurdwara, and people have seen you and they've talked to you, or you've been on Sikh television or South Asian TV, get familiar with your face and get familiar with your what your message is, you start to then begin to myth bust in terms of what they're thinking and what their notions are about health, and what their perceptions are about health as well. And we know in a world today, anything, everything on social media is an influence. So if you've got it's a funny today story, that myself and Nafiza went to a conference today, and then one person was told in their community that you've got type 2 diabetes, but if you ate 20 cloves of garlic in a day, your diabetes would disappear. Now, these are the things that would be out on social media, would be out on WhatsApp messages. And I get some, I'll be honest, I get some messages from my family for a WhatsApp group, and my mum is saying, have this, have that, the other, and if you've got type 2 diabetes, you should be having. But this is the kind of myth busting that we do, and say, actually, it's got to be controlled. Your type 2 diabetes has got to be controlled. Your hypertension's got to be controlled, and it's got to be controlled by a health professional as opposed to someone just saying something and you're watching a TikTok video. So these are the things that we come across all the time. And when you're a trusted voice, they'll listen to you. If you're not a trusted voice, they're not going to listen to you. Sometimes I go into the temples and it'd be like, oh, British Sikh nurses are here. Fantastic. They'll come, the congregation then will come to me and then say to me, well, I've got this ailment or this, can you, what can I do? And you tell them, and it's like, okay, you've told me that, you're a trusted platform, you're a trusted organization. I can take that information away, and then I can use it, in terms of it. And I think that really builds it in terms of a trusted voice as well. And it's also, if we really look at it, it's not just a trusted voice within the South Asian community, it's a trusted voice within our own profession. Of profession trusting us in terms of what we do as well. I could be a nurse and I could say all sorts of stuff, but those words, trust me, I'm a nurse. You're playing with fire when you say those words. And so I can, in terms of what we do, we carry a lot of responsibility. We carry the nursing profession. We're trusted, we're one of the most trusted professions in the whole world, alongside doctors, nurses, and midwives. We're one of the most trusted professions in the whole world. And people will take what you say as gospel. So you've got to really think about the information that you're disseminating. Is it correct? Is it right? And is it going to benefit my community? And alleviate their fears, and also provide them positivity for their needs.
Can I just sort of on the back of that, can I just say, when you were saying about, I suppose it's like the old wives' tales, I suppose you could relate to, all these myths that we hear. And the thing is, when as Rohit said, we're very much aware of some of the things that are said within our community. And when we hear them, it's the reaction that we give because we understand and because we know. We don't react in, oh my God, X, Y, and Z. It's about understanding where that has come from, because historically, a lot of these practices, these traditional beliefs, there is a rationale behind it. But yes, in the day of modern science, in the day of medicine and science, we need to sort of work with them to make them understand that, okay, eating 20 cloves of garlic isn't going to take your diabetes away, but maybe having garlic might help in a certain way, but alongside your medical and your medication that you're taking, because that's not harmful. But and I think it's how you approach it and the way you approach it, and not just sort of saying, oh, that's ridiculous, and reacting in a really sort of undermining way. And I think that's what we have, being South Asians, when we go to our communities, we really do understand and know where they're coming from, because our parents, our grandparents had those notions. And we've heard them, we hear them within our household, within our communities. And about trust, yes, Rohit rightly says, because we are professionals, nurses, midwives, medics, there is that level of trust and that level of responsibility that we have, and people do come to us and sort of question and listen to us. So yes, it's a lot of pressure on us, but it's one way of disseminating what should be done and what should be done.
I think one of the other things that really stands out about both of your practice for me was the kind of innovation and the kind of entrepreneurial kind of approaches that you both take. I wonder if you've anything to say about that, because that's quite different to the kind of work that most of us do. We are systemized quite a lot, so you're doing something a little bit different there.
Yeah, I'll go.
Go on.
I think really, if we really think about innovation and entrepreneurship, nurses do it every day in terms of what we do. So if we take it through our course in terms of what we do, so for third-year nurses, at the very last module they may do will be a quality improvement project that they need to do, and that's it, and execute that quality improvement project from a academic perspective, not from a practical perspective. However, what we need to do is really pick it up from a practical perspective and say, is this a good idea? Can it really be used? And that's it. And I think really thinking out a little bit out of the box is really what entrepreneurship is as well. And that's what I've really taken in terms of it as well. So thinking of those gaps, we know those gaps exist. It's just about doing something about it. And actually, in terms of the entrepreneurship for British Sikh nurses, we're doing simple things. One of the campaigns that we're doing is a Restart a Heart campaign with the Resuscitation Council. And so what we're doing is training bystander CPR to the Sikh community, so they have basic life support skills. Now, that's similar to like Dyson's invention of a bagless Hoover. It's that simple. We've got the skills, we're going out to the community, and we're teaching the community those skills. That's what we're doing. And I think it's innate within all of us, nurses, to do those small things that we can do. The only difference is in terms of excelling that entrepreneurship or innovation is that we don't have time. They don't have time, may have families, etc. I'm lucky I've got a very supportive wife, and she, when we first started, I would literally just pull up in a chair on a table with some leaflets about organ donation, a blood pressure machine. Just do it, just do it. And that's exactly what we did. So it was a no-brainer in terms of what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted to do. But when you think about that as innovative, it's innovative in terms of expansion. How you innovate in terms of expansion, how you work with different partners, how we lead with different partners, how we're growing in terms of what we're doing, getting recognized by other industries, especially the NHS. We're getting recognized in terms of our work as well. And that's what it is. And then how to get paid from it. That's probably the most in entrepreneurial thing, is how to get paid for it. And we've gone through funding. We do apply for funding. It's a non-profit organization, but we're applying for funding for various streams within the NHS and outside of the NHS as well. So really, that's how it grows. That's where the ideas really come into for innovation entrepreneurship, is how do we keep this, how do we sustain, how do I sustain what British Sikh Nurses is doing for the next 10 years? How do we fund it, and etc. Because in all honesty, in the first, we started in 2016, it's 7 years. In the first 6 years, it was funded by myself and my wife, and that's it. And it was a shoestring budget, but it was still, our petrol going out to the gurdwaras, sitting there camping, doing what we're doing, and that's it, and doing the workshops and everything else as well. So now that we've got a team, it's slowly growing into something that's noticeable, and people are thinking, right, can we invest? Is there something else we can do? Is there other areas that we can look at as well? I'll hand it over to Nafiza, because she's
Yes,
itching to say something.
no, I'm not itching. I'm just saying that with the Association of South Asian, I mean, this was an organisation that it just came out of a conversation that 3 midwives of South Asian heritage had, and when we were talking, we realised that, and there was 30 years of experience within the group, and we realised that what was happening 30 years ago is still happening now in the context of how women are being treated and how staff are being treated. And we just felt, the 3 of us, that, we can't keep quiet anymore. Something has to change. Someone has to speak out. And we just, Asam was conceived, and it was only going to be something small. And this is 2 years ago. And then we sort of launched on social media. We reached out to the community to get, their experiences. And we realized from the inundated sort of emails that we were getting that we need to go bigger. And again, like Rohit said, we were 3, we paid for everything. We were 3 full-time midwives working, the hours that we work. But this became a passion. And the more we heard the experiences, the more it drove our passion. And, we were having burning the midnight oil, literally, midnight, we were having meetings, we were doing stuff online, but printing out leaflets and whatever at our own cost, on this minimal budget. And we didn't know, in all essence, it's a business, we're running a business, but none of us have done that before. But through time, we sort of, 2 years ahead now, we now have an accountant on board, we've got a CEO on board, and yes, we're growing, but we are still, getting funding is hard. And luckily we've managed to secure funding to do the work we do. One of the projects that we have been doing is with Florence Nightingale Association, where we secured funding to support the internationally recruited midwives, because we obviously have international midwives coming in from abroad, and it's to support them. So we created a 6-month program, a buddying program, to support them, because these midwives, these nurses are coming from overseas. They have no idea how to navigate the system. Yes, they have been prepared to come over, but it's not easy. And it's to support them over that 6 months or more, to be a buddy, to sort of to give them the tools to navigate, to orientate, to understand what to expect. If they have any problems, where do they go? Where to signpost them? What to expect.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that as well, you with the entrepreneurship, we've expanded as well into the international nurse arena as well, and we have 70 nurses on our books now, and we've got a pool of volunteers also doing. So we combine it both in terms of it. So there's a volunteer aspect to it as well, in terms of the workshops and community work that we do, but it also is in terms of supporting international nurses, but not just international nurses. I want to say that we also support native South Asian nurses as well. So it's just a couple of the things that we've done is we've done faith groups, in terms of we brought them together in terms of having a reflective nursing exercise through the faith, and as well doing it at the temple. We've also as partnership goes, we're in partnership with Nafiza. So we did our first conference as a British Sikh Nurses and a SAM conference in January this year. And so we had, and that was amazing. We had around 70 people turn up. We had, Ruth, Dame Ruth May, she gave a speech. Andrea Sutcliffe from the NMC, was there to talk. And even this was the first in terms of pioneering and being entrepreneurial, this was the first platform that she, spoke openly in a public platform after being elected as president of the Royal College of Nursing. So we had some, these are small snippets of
They're really important.
That we are, but we've shown the power of joining forces. We're going further now to join forces now with the Pakistani Nurses Association, the Arabic Nurses Association, and we're now in talks now to do a collaborative conference. With all of the like South Asian and kind of South Asian heritage, nurses and midwives, and that's just going to be phenomenal in the future. And that's the power of innovation, is working together in partnership, grabbing those ideas and pulling people together. And we say South Asian, and certainly for British Sikh nurses and for Assam, you don't have to be South Asian to join us. At that point, I want to put that out as well, that you don't have to be of South Asian origin to join us. You just have to be a nurse or a midwife and just have passionate for community work, and that's it. That's not a problem at all.
And I'd like to echo that as well. And if you're going to talk about conferences, I mean, Assam, we in our first year, we decided that we were going to do a conference. And, there's so much negativity about sort of black and brown health professionals, we don't do anything. So we decided to put forward a conference it was a virtual conference called the Dark Lens Conference, basically. And it was to celebrate black and brown excellence in perinatal health.
Good.
And we didn't know what, we just thought, let's do a conference, not knowing how difficult it is or how big a task it was, but we did it. We collaborated with Mars Lord, who is a birth activist, and we put together a conference. It was a 2-day conference, not just a 1-day conference, a virtual conference. And we had amazing speakers. And we did the second conference early this year. And we are now going live in November. So watch this space. So we're doing Through the Dark Lens Conference live in Birmingham. And we're going to be looking at how to be a change agent and what you can do in order to bring about change. So it's going to be a very interactive conference. So that is coming out in November. So it's just little things to put out there that we feel can make a difference and improve, care, basically. For me, for us, for Assam, it's about ensuring that women who are accessing maternity services, all women, have equitable care, because it's about equity rather than equality. But it's also about understanding that some people just need that little lift up to get on that level that everyone else is on. So what do we need to do to enable that? So maybe it's about, having services that are nuanced rather than that one fit all. So watch this space for November.
Will. And Vanessa, I wondered if it would come to you, if there's any questions through.
We've not got any questions yet. People engaging, but we haven't got any questions. But I've just been listening to you, and I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think the way you're talking as a white person kind of reflects what any of us would think, that we kind of trust and want to talk to somebody who represents us, whether that's our gender, our social class background, education, and etc. But I guess our services have been built by white people, haven't they? And that's that's the crux of the problem, isn't it? That they've been built by white people, therefore they've always represented the kind of white voice. And I guess what you're doing is creating a space for people, as you say, who kind of recognise themselves, feel more validated and more able to speak out. And I guess it's making me think about, the work I do in prisons. We allocate money within the budget to work with local charities, so that it's a very small amount, but I guess it's a start to kind of try and bring people in to help support people who people trust, because it's certainly the experience within different communities in prisons, I would say, as well as the wider health system. And obviously you've got the other sort of intersectional issues in prisons around, the fact that people are imprisoned and a lot of the shame and stigma in different cultural communities about being in prison and, you know, bringing shame to families and, you know, all those issues as well. So yeah, just a reflection. It sounds, you know, amazing the work you're doing, I think. So it's really good.
I think statutory services need to know when to get out of the way and give the money to someone else who knows
Yeah,
what to do.
that's kind of the crux of what I'm thinking, really.
Yeah.
That, you know, that's the solution, isn't it, really? That, you know, we want, you know, services kind of want to hear from communities, want people to be more engaged with the services that are offered by the NHS. So why not kind of hand the money to people in those communities who can do that engagement work and bring back, you know, what needs to change, and in a like real genuine kind of co-produced way, which is, you know, the heart of what you're saying, isn't it, around co-production, really.
I
think
feel
adding
that.
to that as well,
Go.
adding to that as well, what I was thinking is, if we think about the data, over the last few years, so we had COVID-19, the report from COVID-19, the health via that data, but what you won't do is action it.
Yep.
And so what we've done is action it. And if the bigger organizations like the NHS and etc. see that this grassroots work that is practically being done for free, and connectivity voice within those communities that are able to action those health inequality data that we have, and they can make an impact with that data and bring us an evaluation that's going to be positive for that community, and really do something that's going to change the community as much as it can. And I think that's what we need to do. We've got to stop admiring the data. We've got to action on the data. And this is what myself and organizations like Nafiza and myself do.
I think it's as well, it's not just about actioning data, although I think that is a really important point, but it's also about understanding the data, because by looking at the data through a white lens, kind of you're looking at it from a perspective that might not resonate with people, you know, in these communities that we're talking about, because I think that's what we tend to do as well. You know, we collect data and then we think, oh, right, well, you know, this group of people aren't engaging, this is what we need to do. And that might be the completely wrong solution. Whereas what you're doing is going into communities and talking to people about why they're not engaging and what they want and what would help them, which is, you know, the way of doing it. It's advocacy, isn't it? In action as well, really. Yeah, sounds really good.
Lisa, were you going to say something then?
I was going to just say something.
I can always tell your eyebrows go up.
No, I was going to say that, yes, obviously looking at all the data that we've had, especially the Embrace report, you know, where we had the 5 times more. I mean, now it's Black women are 4 times more likely to die, where with South Asian women 3 times more likely to die from childbirth. And I mean, those statistics in a modern, you know, country like the UK is, for me, it's just not acceptable. You know, we should be ashamed of those statistics. You know, it's said that a woman in Pakistan is probably less likely to die than she is in the UK. You know, how can we accept that? And the thing is, we have to understand, I mean, the NHS is an amazing model. It truly is. But it was built, made by white men or white people for white, you know, the white population. And 75 years on now, we are a very different population and our needs are different. But it's about acknowledging that, unfortunately, the NHS, there is structural and institutional racism which exists. And those are the reasons why women, the patients from the diverse communities are having that substandard care. It's about acknowledging that. And until leaders within the NHS acknowledge that, and until trusts take accountability of these facts, things aren't going to happen. So again, I'm going to go back to representation, that we need more people from our communities to be within that structure, to be allowed to implement the change. And again, as well, also organizations like us, you know, we're supporting the NHS gladly. And as Rohit said, we're doing it for free. You know, they should see us as a help. I mean, the NHS is just overburdened now. You know, they have to do everything. So why not take us on board as partners and help us do the work that you need to do, and you need to, you know, provide the services for the community. It's about acknowledging that, and I think unless it is acknowledged, you know, things are going to move very slowly.
Yeah, because I mean, the key for all our organizations is health promotion and health prevention. And if you're going to target that, and you want to target that, that's going to reduce the, you know, that's going to reduce the inpatient numbers, etc., and so forth. And it's going to be tailored in a way that suits the community needs, and that's it, and alleviates their fears. And I keep saying that in terms of it, but it is that in essence in itself as well.
And you know, that actually chimes with the question I've got come through. I've got two come through. First of all, I'll just put Dave's in because obviously he's doing all the hard work here at the back. First thing he says is entrepreneurial is really hard to spell, which is true. But he also was asking for both of you guys, what sort of things helped when you first got started and what hindered? And that's just in case anyone out there is thinking about, you know, they've got that impetus to change something or start something. So what advice would you give to somebody starting out that way?
It's the passion. It's wanting to make that difference. Yes, it's hard. It hasn't been easy because you won't, you know, you are driving that change. If we set up an organization, the three of us, we didn't have any help from outside, and it was like finding our way as we went along, learning by our mistakes. But it's the passion, it's the drive to make that difference because someone has to do it. You know, enough is enough. And barriers, yes, there are barriers. I mean, again, you know, we all work, we do our day jobs, and this is our other job because it becomes more than the day job. And it's about striking that balance and about the day job for the day job, for us to be allowed to do our other job. And sometimes there's a clash, even though what we're doing is about change within the health structure. It's not often recognized, and those are the barriers that we get to, you know, I said today when I went to a conference today, I had to take a day's leave to go and attend the conference because, you know, it's not considered part of my job, but yet the two, they marry together, don't they? You know, it's about bringing change. So those are the barriers. And just, I don't know the red tape, who to seek help for, because there is no one out there. But then once we formed our organization, the network that we've built is being amazing. You know, I often say, if I had this network 20 years ago, wow, because there is a network out there, and I've made the best of friends in the last 2 years. Rohit knows, you know, I've met people like Rohit, met people, all sorts of people who believe in the same things as we believe in. And I would say the key to survival is find your tribe and find the key people that you can fall back on, you can get support from, you can have a rant with without feeling judged. That is the key.
I think adding to that as well, the first thing people are going to think is about resources and cost as well. So I'm going to echo much of what Nafiza said. It is all about passion. It's all about getting engaged with the community as well. But it's about cost. And if we really think about cost and we think about connectivity with other people and other peers, it's free of charge. You know, you jump onto Twitter, you make an account free of charge. You jump onto Instagram, you jump onto TikTok, make a few TikTok videos of CPR within the South Asian community or in a language that it could be understood. That's how simple it is. I mean, we were privileged today to meet Dr. Nigar Arif. He is a TikTok doctor. You know, that's how she's come to be famous on TV and etc. by doing these snippets of videos, by looking at an area of she looked at South Asian women's health, and she then went with that, and that's it, and women's health in general as well. Done the same, and it doesn't cost that much. The only thing that will cost is when you get to start to do your workshops and you go out and do workshops and etc. But then by the time that time arrives, you'd probably be established with lots of connections within the NHS to say, yes, we can offer you money for this, or we can offer you money for this, and do you want to do this? You're helping target this, you know, one of these areas of health within the community. Why don't you do this? And that's it. But that's what, in all essence, that's what me and myself and Nafiza, organisations like need more of, because we are bridging that gap between the NHS and those communities as well.
Yeah, time is whizzing away from us, and we've covered some real conversational ground again tonight, which has been interesting, exciting. And that's probably why I've noticed time going so fast. I guess it would be really helpful if we could come around to each of you and see if there's anything that you would like to just leave the audience with, any sort of thoughts that you think, or any perhaps calls to action. I think so. We start with Rohit.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I want to say to every single nurse and midwife out there, in terms of if you've done quality improvement projects, if you've done anything that's made changes, is put yourself up for an award. Do not be afraid to nominate yourself or your team for a Royal College of, we have very few award ceremonies, the Royal College of Nursing, and also, you know, the Nursing Times Awards. But in midwifery, you know, there's even less awards. But if you've got an opportunity, you've made a change, put yourself up for those awards and get recognized for what you've done.
You're absolutely right. And don't be worried about putting yourself up for it, because that's what everybody has to do.
Exactly.
And it feels very counter the kind of way that sort of nurses and midwives are trained to think about what they do. Like, well, it's not special. It is special. It is, absolutely. And the way people respond to you once you've won something as well, very different, I think.
Yeah.
It does really help if you're trying to make change. It's a brilliant point.
My turn. I think the one thing I would say, I echo everything that Rohit said, but I would say, believe in yourself, be the change, and don't let anyone knock you down. Because I think, you know, for me, you know, I've had 20 years of always being made to feel not good enough. But finally, I compare it with being with me being in a cage with the door just a little bit ajar. And every time I tried to step out of that cage, I came back in, because I didn't feel that I could flourish in that environment. But now I've been set free and I'm flying, and I'm not going to let my feet touch the ground. And it's about believing in yourself and being your authentic self. You know, don't let don't be what other people want you to be. Be you.
Definitely. Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to say before we finish up?
Yeah, I think I've captured a lot of what I was saying, but I suppose one thing that I'll say honestly is that, you know, we struggle on MHTV to get diversity in our guests. So if you're watching this, you know, don't feel that you can't be guests on here. We want different voices. We want to kind of reflect the different communities and different people who are listening. So, you know, just like we've just said about awards, you know, get in touch with one of us. If you've got something to say and you want to share it and you want a platform to have a conversation about mental health, then get in touch with myself, Nicky or Dave, and we're always happy to have you on MHTV.
We like a good troublemaker. Look at our guest tonight.
Yeah.
So I think it just remains for us to thank our guests so much for their work, and call on people with budgets to recognise that. I think that's the most important thing you can do if you're a budget holder. If you're not a budget holder, most people, cause some noise and draw attention to this. So we've been tweeting out, we've been sharing this work, and it's so exciting to see the nursing and midwifery family flourishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really does make all of us proud, I think, to see the work that you guys do, without sounding patronising about it. But it's so exciting to see people doing and understanding what nursing and midwifery is about at a real fundamental level. It's really exciting to see. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, and we will wish you all a happy and safe good night. Good night, all. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.